Okay, Nick, is it still cold? We've got a bit of ice there, I got.
It's very cold. Look at this. I haven't yet found out what this is, but it's a wonderful piece of sculpture with a bit like the Boudica down at the House of Commons.
Yeah.
There. I mean, this one, she's drawing a plough pulled by oxen. All sorts of sculpture around it. Look at this magnificent brass python that everyone has stroked over the years here. Fantastic thing, and of course, I think it's all a fountain around it. And look at the thickness of this piece of ice. This is a PR catastrophe for the global warmists. I don't know if this has been shown on global television, but look at the thickness of that in early December. It's been told by our comrades from Sweden that it's the coldest weather they've ever known in their lifetimes in Sweden. Really quite something.
Vandal. Now then, what we're going to talk about now, we've talked about the implications of what's happened here, the global warming conference, catastrophe for the warmists, really. We've explained that. But let's look at things now from our point of view, from the British National Party's point of view. You, in your course of business as a representative of the European Parliament here, have met some quite important people, haven't you?
Yeah, all sorts of people sort of rubbing shoulders with introduced the President of Mauritius. Had a bit of a chat yesterday with one of the leaders of the BJP, the Hindu Nationalist Official Opposition Party in India. Incidentally, my top lip is going so cold. I'm not sure I'm speaking clearly here. But yeah, many people talking this morning with one of the head of the delegation, who's one of the most powerful socialist politicians in Europe, Joe Linen. So all sorts of people have seen that the British National Party has got something sensible to say.
Yeah, and what do you think it's done for us as a party? Because, let's be honest, you've probably been one of the most prominent politicians here, have you not, from the UK, as it were?
Yeah,
I mean,
I've done a lot of interviews, not very much in Britain. I've done a lot of interviews, every single newspaper in Britain, effectively, but they haven't run it. The Telegraph ran a story online, but not actually in the printed paper. But I was on Russia Today, that's got an enormous TV audience over about 30-40 countries with satellite TV yesterday. I've done a number of things like that, so fairly high profile, not that high within Britain, but I think that we've done enough over the last few months to really tag in at least the politically educated public's mind the fact that the British National Party has come out against the concept of man-made global warming.
Yeah, it certainly has. I've been very pleased. I've been following the progress. You have to forgive the camera shake here because I'm shivering to death as well. Yeah. Just imagine if all that carbon in the atmosphere wasn't doing its trick of warming us up, just how cold we'd be. But I've been tracking the coverage, and it's really been very good. We could have had more, I'll be honest with you. We could have had more, but I think the way the conference has gone, that was perhaps not going to be our gift.
Yeah.
But it's certainly put us there, along now with our opposition to the war in Afghanistan. We've got this as well. There's certainly a lot more to this party, a lot more breadth now as we develop and we become more mainstream. And this is all part and parcel of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's obviously it's necessary. Well, initially we're opposing the idea of man-made global warming as some kind of serious problem that things have got to be done about, because, as I've explained already, it is a thoroughly deceitful elite scam, which wouldn't be costless. Here at the conference they've been saying, well, there's two sources for all this money they want to spend. There's public money, but of course public money comes from the taxes imposed on the Western middle class, and there's the money the markets are going to raise, and that of course comes at the expense mainly of poor consumers, the people who are going to be taxed without noticing it. Even in Britain today, for instance, everybody's electricity bills are now 14% higher than they should be because of the subsidy effect for the utterly useless wind power schemes that are being put into practice. Not one of those would be there if they weren't heavily subsidised by not the taxpayer, but by ordinary consumers, and that burden falls always on the poorest people in our society. So it's right that we oppose that scam in the first place, but I think it's also positioned us very well politically for the future.
Yeah, it has, and I think really, in all honesty, we ought to get out of this weather, because you and me are going to get frostbite if we're not careful. So I'm going to focus on that ice and that pigeon, and I think that's about it.
Just before you do, just sort of one more bit on that, really on that subject.
Yeah.
People have got to bear in mind that all the main parties of government and opposition have spent the last 3 or 4 years telling the British public that this is a catastrophe, something's got to be done, and sorry, it's going to cost a lot of economic pain, but we had to do something. They really nailed their colours to that mast. David Cameron in particular. No sooner was he elected to lead the Tory party, if you remember, he was up there at the North Pole with his huskies, shivering away, saying that this is a catastrophe. All the old politicians have nailed their colours to the mast. The global warming is a serious thing, and it's a reality. Already more than half the British public know they're lying. That number is going to increase. The scientific debate about this is only really now beginning. And the simple fact is the warmists are going to be on the losing side. And I think we're going to find in a few years' time that as the elite and the leftist effort to really push this on people reaches one desperate last gasp, we're going to be the ones seen speaking on behalf of the ordinary people. We don't want to be taxed. We don't want to be spending extra money on a problem that isn't a problem. There's enough real problems out there in terms of poverty, energy depletion, real pollution. There's real problems out there for politicians to fight. There's real problems out there that money needs to be spent on without wasting our money and our efforts on a load of hot air.